Namaste, welcome. I'm Katy Appleton and I'm joined today by Elvira. Thank you for being here. Elvira is going to be the body, let's say, inside of this tutorial on backbending, on the infamous Urdhva Danurasana wheel pose. So it's a pose that first of all, you need to have a certain amount of opening in the body in order to be doing this pose. So although I'm teaching it right now on Elvira, she has been working for the last couple of hours on some of the sequences that you guys will get to see. So I just want to make sure that, if you're going to be doing this pose, that your body is warm, first of all. This isn't a tutorial to work with when your body is not warm. The most important parts of the body that need to be opened to work on full wheel pose are around the quadriceps into the hip flexors and the front body, all the way up through the front body. And then the back body, those parts of the body that need to be strengthened are around the hamstrings and around the sit bone muscles, she says, trying to find them, around this area. And you want the back body to be strong in order to help lift the scapula, those are the shoulder blades, into the ribs to open the heart into the shape. So poses such as lunges, quad openers, smaller back bends like cobras, bridge pose, camel pose, but you would really need to be, in a practice to be doing those, can be really helpful to open the body in preparation for a big maha pose such as Urdhva Danurasana. It is a big pose. It's not a pose that tends to happen at the beginning of a class, you will have noticed. So if you are working towards this, do be mindful, is what I'm trying to say when you're coming into it with this such tutorial. So there's some really helpful ways for people to get into the pose using the wall. If their spine doesn't bend like this, if their spine bends more like this. And so we're going to be using some props underneath the hands to help with that. Sometimes it does help to have a strap around the shoulders or the arms, so we're going to use that as well for Elvira to see what that's like, and also as well for a block to be between the inner thighs. So there's some common mistakes that happens inside of this that can compromise the body. First and foremost, in the lower body, what tends to happen is people, in order to get into this shape, externally rotate their legs. Let me give you a quick demonstration of what I mean, even though you would clearly be on the floor bent-legged. So they externally rotate their legs to try and push up from the sacrum here into the shape. And actually, the spine really dislikes that. It won't bend at all well in that position, because what it does is there's the pelvic area here. What it does is there's a bone here called the sacrum, and when we externally rotate the leg bones, which is what tends to happen when we come up into a pose such as wheel, is that it locks the SI joints down and prevents movement of the sacrum, and then it locks the lower back and spine. And so actually we don't bend as effectively, whatever our mum and dad have given us in terms of our length and bend in our body. So primarily you want to be really mindful of that. So you want to keep as much as possible the legs hips width apart, second toes pointing forwards, and that as you go into the shape, be mindful not to Charlie Chaplin your feet. So one of the teaching cues that I often give to my students is to soften the inner thighs down and think tailbone forwards. And a lot of people say, oh gosh, I can't get as high up in the shape actually, but actually it's giving you a more even curve and not compressing the sacrum and lower back. So having a block between the inner thighs can really help with that. And I'm going to talk you through Elvira's body to melt the inner thighs and think tailbone forwards more. In the upper body, we want to make sure that we've got a level of integration. So as you go up, the elbows might need to swing out slightly, but when you come into the whole pose, you want to be able to sort of hug the elbows inwards to again maintain some space around the neck and the cervical spine. So when we go into it like this and push up, we're going to squish the cervical spine a little bit like the lower part of the body. So you can go into it with an opening of the elbows if that helps, but then you want to sort of broaden across the collarbones and upper back to give the cervical spine lots of space. So it does help for some bodies to have a strap around the shoulders to help with that. So I'm sure Elvira, she's very open. That's lovely for your body. So most likely she wouldn't need blocks, but for the point of the practice today, I'm going to ask her to be on props. So you lay your head to the floor. You need a wall, sturdy props, and perhaps a strap around the arms. So let's see as we go. We may as well give all parts of the glory here. Good. You don't want the strap too, you said it was a little loose last time. So then place the hands behind you onto the blocks. And so if you feel like you're too close, you might need to shimmy down a bit this way. Because the head doesn't actually touch the wall. Yeah. How does that feel? Okay. No, you just need to be on the edge of the prop. So that's good. Okay. Good to know. So bring your heel of your hand, please, more forward so they're all right on the edge of the prop. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Thank you for being my brain. So the strap doesn't want to be too far down, otherwise you will garrote yourself, meaning towards the armpits. You want to have the strap higher up towards your elbows. And so slowly we're going to come into bridge pose. So first of all, I'm going to just put this block between Elvira's inner thighs as a meanie. Good. And then get her to lift up into bridge pose, first of all, with the arms back like this. So again, a melting of the inner thighs down and a scooping of the tailbone forwards will open up around the lower back and sacrum area. Super important. And then slow it down at this point. So Elvira, I'd love for you to press into the blocks, but only come to the crown of the head, please, my friend. Good. And when you come to the crown of the head, please, you really do need to root your hands into the props and then draw your arm bones into your shoulders. The tips of the scapula, that's the bottom of the shoulder blades, press them up into your ribs. Now, from here, if available, and it may not be, press down to lift up. Good. No problem. We've had a block alert here. Good. Continuing to breathe here. So again, please, in this shape, and I know possibly some of you are watching rather than doing, rotate the inner thighs in so you melt the inner thighs down and the tailbone forwards. It's really easy, as I said, to go into that Charlie Chaplin leg position. Keep melting the inner thighs down, and it may be, Elvira, that you need to come down in the hips slightly in order to achieve that rotation, which may feel a bit odd, but it gives a different arc to the spine, less in the lower back and more in the upper back where it may be a bit stiff. Good. And then come out of it. I'm going to take that strap away. How did that feel when I was taking the pelvis down a bit? Did it change it to make it more in the upper body to open? Or you're not sure?
Not sure.
Not sure.
Intense though.
Intense though. Let's try that once more. So if you were watching, you can come now and do this, or at least you've got some top tips for when you get into a wheel pose inside of another person's practice. Good. Taking your hands behind you onto the props with or without a strap. Good. So you're going to lift up into bridge pose first of all. Think melt the inner thighs down, tailbone forwards. That's a big piece. It was a challenge for me to begin with to do that, actually. Inner thighs melt, tailbone forwards. And then come onto the crown of the head. Good. And then let's go a little quicker so there's the energy for it. Come up. So again here in the shape, see if you can melt the inner thighs down, which may mean that you bring the pelvis down a bit. So melt the inner thighs down. And think tailbone forwards. That's it. Good. Continuing to breathe. Long, full breaths. Wonderful. And then take the head down to the floor. Tuck the chin into the chest. Good. And a really important balancer for this is hugging knees into the chest. Good. And maybe a brief moment for a happy baby pose. Why don't you take that, Elvira, for your spine? Good. Happy baby pose. You can hold the outer edges of the feet, which is what I love to do, or the big toes, and just press the feet up into the hands slightly as well as you breathe here, just to decompress the lower back. Femur bones hug down into the sockets. Great. And then releasing the hands, taking your knees, taking a moment to hug in. So I really hope that there were some top tips in wheel pose there for you, using the props against the wall, perhaps using a strap. Feel free to take the feet to the floor, have a rest for a moment. Yes, turning legs in. And also melting the inner thighs downwards and the tailbone towards the knees. That's a real key one. And with a body such as Elvira's that has a deep back bend, it's quite easy to sort of pop high up into a shape, and actually backing out of it and getting an even arc to the spine will be an interesting one to play around with. I hope this serves. Bless you. Thank you, Elvira. Namaste.